Most men walk through life wearing a kind of emotional armor. It's not because they don't feel deeply or because they don't care. It's because from a young age they've been taught that strength is silence, that real men don't cry, and that vulnerability is weakness. So, they build these invisible walls, layers of protection, that keep the world from seeing what's really going on inside. They joke instead of confess, they distract instead of explain, they isolate instead of ask for help. And in most of their relationships, whether romantic, friendly, or even familial, they keep those walls high and fortified. But something shifts when a man meets the one woman who feels different from everyone else. It's subtle at first. Maybe he shares something small, something personal that others wouldn't know. Maybe he tells her about a childhood memory he never thought mattered, or a failure that still haunts him, or a fear he's never voiced out loud. And when she listens without judgment, when she receives his truth with warmth instead of walking away, something in him begins to change. Her presence feels safe, her energy invites honesty, and slowly, without even realizing it, he starts to remove the layers. Not all at once, and not always gracefully, but enough to show her pieces of himself no one else gets to see. This isn't just emotional sharing, it's exposure, it's trust at the deepest level, because for men, letting someone see their true self is risky. It's dangerous in a world that praises stoicism and mocks softness. But for the one, he's willing to take that risk. Not because he's weak, but because her love makes him feel strong enough to be seen completely and unfiltered. He stops pretending to have it all together. He stops hiding his anxiety, his doubts, or his moments of confusion. He lets her see when he's uncertain. He admits when he's scared. And in doing so, he experiences a kind of freedom most men never allow themselves to feel. It's not just about having someone to lean on. It's about being able to fully be without fear of rejection. And that kind of openness is sacred. It's rare. It's reserved only for the woman who holds a special kind of power, not over him, but with him. What's even more profound is that when a man opens up like this, he often doesn't talk about it. He won't announce, "I'm being vulnerable now." He'll just start showing it, in the way he confides in her, seeks her perspective, or allows himself to be emotionally naked in her presence. And if you're the woman witnessing this side of him, know that you are standing in rare air. Because this isn't something he gives freely. It's something he gives when he feels like he's finally found a home, not in a place, but in a person. So if he lets down his guard with you, if he cries in front of you, if he tells you about the pain he's buried, or the dreams he barely whispers to himself, don't take it lightly. It means you are the one he trusts to see him without the mask, and that trust is one of the purest forms of love a man can give. Ego is a quiet, persistent force that lives in almost every man. It shows up in small arguments, in the need to be right, in the resistance to saying, "I'm sorry." It's not always about arrogance, it's about protection. A man's ego is often built as a defense, a way of proving to himself and the world that he's in control, that he's enough, that he's not weak. In most relationships, even in ones that seem deep, the ego remains the ruler. It guides his reactions, shapes his choices, and builds walls during moments that call for connection. But when a man meets a woman he sees as the one, something begins to shift. Slowly, quietly, and sometimes even painfully, his ego starts to loosen its grip. He begins to care less about being right and more about being close. He stops fighting just to win and starts listening to understand. It's not that he suddenly becomes perfect, far from it, but he starts catching himself in the middle of ego-driven responses. Where once he might have shut down or lashed out, now he pauses, he reflects, he even apologizes without being asked. Not because he's weak, not because she demands it, but because her peace means more to him than his pride. When a man is in love with the one, he doesn't want to be the source of her pain. He doesn't want to win the argument if it means losing her smile. And that realization begins to redefine how he views strength. He starts to understand that real strength isn't in proving a point, it's in choosing peace, choosing patience, and choosing love, even when his old patterns tell him to pull away. There's something deeply humbling about loving someone who makes you want to grow. And for a man, that growth often begins by confronting the parts of himself that no one ever asked him to examine before. She becomes his mirror, not in a way that shames him, but in a way that invites him to rise. She reflects back the version of him that's capable of love without control, presence without power, leadership without dominance. And that's rare, because very few women ever get to see this side of a man. Most relationships never make it past the ego. But when a man loves deeply, when he recognizes that the woman in front of him is not just another chapter but the story, he starts making decisions differently. He holds his tongue in moments when anger tries to take the wheel. He chooses forgiveness when offense creeps in. He becomes more intentional with his words, more thoughtful with his actions, and more aware of how his energy affects her heart. And he does all of this not because she forces him, but because her presence calls something higher out of him. Her love softens his edges, her respect calms his storms, her loyalty silences the insecurities that his ego once worked so hard to mask. And in loving her, he begins to love a version of himself that's more whole, more present, and more real. That's the power of the one. She doesn't demand his surrender, she earns it, just by being who she is. And when that happens, the man who once protected his ego at all costs will start protecting her heart instead. There's a kind of love that doesn't always speak loudly. It doesn't show up in grand declarations or over-the-top gestures. Instead, it's tucked quietly behind everyday choices, a kind of love that reveals itself in sacrifice. When a man sees a woman as the one, he begins to give in ways that often go unnoticed, not because he's trying to impress her and not because he wants credit, but because his heart is fully invested. His decisions begin to reflect her presence in his life, even when she's not around to witness them. He may give up things he once held close, habits, routines, or even friendships that no longer align with the future he's building. And he does it without complaint, not because she asked, but because somewhere deep inside, he realizes that protecting what they have is more important than clinging to what he used to be. He starts to rearrange his life with her in mind. Maybe it's as simple as spending less time out with people who don't take relationships seriously. Maybe it's more difficult, like turning down an opportunity that would have meant distance or disconnection. These sacrifices often aren't loud or flashy, but they speak volumes about where his priorities now lie. There's something deeply meaningful about the quiet decisions, the ones he doesn't announce. When he wakes up early to take care of something so she doesn't have to stress. When he drives across town just to bring her something she forgot. When he puts off his own desires to support her dreams, to be present for her during a challenging time, or to simply sit with her when she needs him there. These things may not get posted on social media. He may never even mention them, but each act becomes a thread in the fabric of the relationship, woven with intention, love, and quiet strength. And here's the truth most people don't talk about. Sacrifice is hard. It's not always easy to let go of what's familiar or convenient. But when a man is in love with the one, he stops thinking only about what's good for him. He starts asking what's good for them. And in doing so, he stops living for just himself. His world begins to shift from me to we. That shift is subtle, but powerful, Because it's no longer about what he wants right now, it's about what they need to grow together. Not everyone will recognize these sacrifices. Some might even question why he's changing, but in his heart he knows. He knows that she brings out the kind of love that doesn't need validation. She brings out a version of him that's more generous, more aware, and more selfless. And that's rare, because very few women ever see this side of a man. Most only see what he's willing to give on the surface. But the one sees what he's willing to let go of quietly, consistently, and without needing anything in return. So, if you ever find yourself loved by a man who silently gives up pieces of comfort, convenience, or even his own desires, just to build something lasting with you, don't overlook that. Because those silent sacrifices, they speak a language louder than words. When a man truly sees a woman as the one, the way he talks about his future starts to change. It's not a sudden switch. It's more like a quiet evolution. His words shift from solitary visions to shared plans. Instead of saying, "I want to," he starts saying, "We should." Instead of dreaming about his life in isolation, he begins imagining what life looks like with her in it, not just for the next few months, but for years to come. It's not about rushing things or pushing commitment. It's a natural progression that flows from the depth of connection he feels. Because once he recognizes that her presence brings him peace, purpose, and clarity, he can't picture a future without her by his side. You'll hear it in the small comments when he talks about where they should travel, what kind of home they could build, what kind of life they could grow into together. It's subtle but powerful. It means he's mentally moved from dating to building. He's no longer just seeing her as someone he enjoys the moment with, he's seeing her as someone worth growing old with. That shift isn't something he does for just anyone. It's a rare moment of alignment between his heart, his mind, and his vision for the future. It's especially significant because most men are taught to think years ahead only in terms of their own goals, career paths, financial milestones, personal growth. But when he finds the one, those goals start to feel incomplete if she's not a part of them. He starts asking himself deeper questions. Will she be happy with this path? Can we build something strong on this foundation? How can I become the man who deserves the life we're dreaming about? This change doesn't always involve dramatic conversations. Sometimes it's a glance when passing a family in the park, or a pause while looking at homes online, or a quiet smile when she talks about her dreams, because now her dreams are becoming his too. Her happiness becomes part of his purpose. Her security becomes something he starts to take personal responsibility for. Not in a controlling or possessive way, but in a loving, protective, deeply intentional way. He may not say everything out loud, but he's thinking ahead. He's counting the cost of a future with her and still choosing it over and over again. That's what makes it real. Because it's easy to talk about love in the moment, but when a man starts planning around a woman, adjusting for her, making space for her in his vision, that's when you know something deeper is happening. That's when it becomes more than just attraction or compatibility. It becomes legacy. She becomes his partner not just emotionally, but mentally and spiritually. And with her in mind, he starts making better decisions. He thinks about where to invest his time, what kind of energy he wants to keep around, what kind of life he wants to lead. Because now, everything he's building has to be worthy of her. Her love inspires him to dream bigger, but also to think wiser. And that kind of influence is rare. Only one woman will ever have that kind of pull on his future. Only one will ever shift his internal compass from me to we so effortlessly. So, if a man begins to speak in terms of us, if his future starts sounding like a shared story rather than a solo pursuit, you're not just someone he loves. You're someone he's choosing to build a life with, and that's a love few ever get to experience. You can always tell how deeply a man loves a woman by how he speaks about her when she's not around. Because anyone can be affectionate in public. Anyone can post the right words or say the right things when eyes are watching. But the real test, the one that separates ordinary love from rare, soul, deep devotion, is what he does in her absence. And when a man has found the one, his loyalty doesn't clock out when she walks out of the room. In fact, it becomes even more evident behind closed doors. He protects her name. He guards her reputation. He refuses to let anyone speak on her in a way that distorts who she really is. Not because she asked him to, and not because he's trying to score points, but because her dignity is sacred to him. When friends joke at her expense or family makes sly remarks, he doesn't just sit back in silence. He stands up, calmly, clearly, and without hesitation, because in his eyes, the woman he loves deserves to be defended even when she's not there to defend herself. That kind of loyalty is rare. It means he's not just emotionally involved, he's invested. Her honor becomes an extension of his integrity, and he knows that what he allows others to say about her is a reflection of the standard he sets for the relationship. He doesn't entertain gossip about her. He doesn't laugh at subtle insults disguised as jokes. He corrects false assumptions, clarifies misunderstandings, and sets boundaries without turning it into a fight. Because he's not trying to win arguments, he's trying to protect the bond they've built. You see, love isn't just about the sweet moments or the romantic gestures. It's about how someone holds you when you're not around to see it. It's about what they allow in rooms you're not invited into. And when a man truly sees a woman as the one, he becomes her quiet warrior in every conversation, every interaction, every situation. He shields her not because she's fragile, but because he knows her worth. And in a world that too often diminishes or misjudges women, that kind of protection is more than just love. It's respect in action. Sometimes he'll defend her in obvious ways. Other times it's subtle, a change in subject, a shift in energy, a line drawn without a scene. But the intention is always the same. She is not just someone he loves. She is someone he honors. And that honor doesn't need applause. He doesn't go back and tell her about every moment he stood up for her. He doesn't keep a scoreboard. Because it's not about credit. It's about care, and the most beautiful part, when she finds out, if ever, she doesn't feel shocked. Because deep down, she already sensed it. Real love is felt in energy before it's ever proven in action. And a man who defends her behind her back gives her something stronger than words. He gives her safety. Not just physical safety, but emotional safety. The kind that tells her she can trust him not just with her heart, but with her name. So if a man protects your presence even in your absence, if he refuses to let the world misrepresent who you are when you're not in the room, know this: you are not just his choice, you are his standard. And that kind of loyalty doesn't come from charm or chemistry. It comes from real, deep, undeniable love. Something remarkable happens to a man when he meets a woman who feels like the one. It's not just that he loves her more than anyone else. It's that her presence awakens something in him that no one else ever could. She doesn't just fit into his life. She challenges him to rise above the life he's known. She doesn't ask him to be different, but her love naturally inspires him to evolve. He begins to see himself through a new lens, not out of pressure or obligation, but from a place of desire to become the best version of who he is. Before her, he may have been content with certain habits, certain patterns, even certain limitations. But when she enters his world, something shifts. He starts reevaluating how he speaks, how he reacts, how he spends his time, how he handles his responsibilities, not because she demands it, but because her energy makes him want to level up. He sees in her a kind of grace and strength that calls something greater out of him. And when a man feels that pull, he doesn't just want to be a good partner. He wants to be a better man. It starts with small things. He becomes more intentional with his words. He thinks twice before reacting. He listens more and interrupts less. He pays attention not only to what she says, but to what she feels. And as time passes, the growth deepens. He starts showing up for himself in ways he never used to, eating better, working harder, being more mindful, more grounded. Her presence becomes a mirror that reflects not only who he is, but who he's capable of becoming. And this transformation isn't about control. It's about inspiration, because the one doesn't try to fix him. She doesn't nag or criticize or force him to change. She simply leads by example, holding herself to a higher standard, living with authenticity and purpose. And in doing so, she awakens his desire to rise alongside her. She makes him want to be a man she can be proud of, not just on the outside, but in the depth of his soul. You see, when a man loves the right woman, she becomes his reason to heal, to focus, to grow, to break generational cycles, to choose discipline over comfort. He starts to see the long game not just for himself, but for what they're building. She becomes the compass that helps him navigate away from the distractions and toward a future filled with meaning. Not because he has to, but because with her it all finally makes sense. It's not about perfection. He'll still make mistakes. He'll still have setbacks and learning curves. But what separates this connection from all the others is that he keeps trying. He keeps improving. He keeps showing up not just for her, but for the man he knows he can be. That drive to grow, to elevate, to become, that is love in action. And the truth is, very few women will ever see this side of a man. Most only see the polished version he shows the world. But the one sees the journey, the raw, real, unfinished version that's still unfolding. And that man, the one who chooses growth over ego, love over fear, legacy over momentary pleasure, that man is giving her a gift no one else can offer. Because when a man starts becoming a better man not for applause, but out of love, he's not just choosing her. He's becoming someone worthy of her forever.